I just built a giant custom Ninjago dragon. Here's the story of how it went. Earlier this year, LEGO released 9 sets as a part of their Ninjago Crystallize wave. However, one of the sets was a bit different from the rest. This is the Ninja Dragon Temple, a core set which was released under the 4+ line. For those who don't know, 4+ sets are similar LEGO sets designed for a younger audience. That's perfectly good and fine, except for one thing. You see, sometimes 4+ sets are smaller versions of bigger sets, and that's great. However, other times, there's no full-size equivalent for the 4+ set, and that's the case with the Ninja Dragon Temple. So when I first saw this set, I loved the colors of the exclusive dragon.
Wow, okay. The colors on that dragon are so cool. Not bad for a 4+ set, honestly. I love the dragon head. I feel like I could do something cool with that. Just the colors are by far the best part of this guy. On the wings, too, those are really sweet.
But of course, after building it up, it ended up being very simple. So immediately I had an idea. Could I use this exclusive head mold to turn this goofy little guy into an awesome full-size dragon? This idea came about back in May, and at the time I had an awesome building challenge idea to go with it. The 4+ dragon, who of course we'll call Jerry, used red and blue as his main color scheme. At the time there was a red dragon and a blue dragon both available on shelves, so I thought it'd make for a really fun challenge to build a Giga Jerry using only these 3 sets. But fast forward a few months and I go to actually plan this video and oops. So I went ahead with getting a copy of the Dragon Temple and the Water Dragon as initially planned, but I had to come up with a 3rd set to pull my red pieces from. Scrolling through LEGO's current catalog, I landed on the X1 Ninja Charger. Sure, a card doesn't inherently lend itself to becoming a dragon, but I think there's a lot of red pieces here that I'll be able to make work, and plus, that makes it more of an actual challenge. Speaking of the challenge, I really didn't have that much of a plan going in. All I knew was I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a reskin of the Water Dragon. I could very easily just plop Jerry's head onto the Water Dragon body and just call it a day. But no, I wanted this to be its own unique thing. So I wanted to try to make it a wyvern like the Fire Dragon. And while I'm probably going to pull some elements from the Water Dragon, that'll help make it more distinct from that set. So as with most of my other building challenge videos, I had the set sent over by the LEGO Ambassador Network, got them all opened up, and I began building. And after a few days of work, well, let me show you what I got. Before we get to that though, did you know that only 18% of my audience is actually subscribed? So if you enjoy these videos and you want to see more, by liking the video and subscribing to the channel, it'll help put the videos in your feed as soon as they're posted, and also really help support me in the channel. Also, if you're able to and you're interested, become a YouTube member. YouTube members get exclusive emotes to my live streams and comments, and access to the exclusive Bricks by Mind members Discord server. So if all that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go click that join button next to the subscribe button. But with all that being said, let me show you my giant custom dragon. So here it is. This one was definitely a challenge, especially with the limited parts I had, but I'm actually really proud of the end result. I've never really built a custom creature before, I've really only done vehicles and locations, so I was worried about how well I could do, but I think this guy turned out pretty great. So let's take a look at him up a little bit closer. So we'll start at the head and the neck, and this is probably the part of the build that I'm the most proud of. I really wanted to keep the red on the bottom, blue at the top aesthetic that the original head had, and while that was a bit harder to do throughout the rest of the body, I feel like I captured it perfectly on the neck while also having some really organic shaping. There's some decent points of articulation here, obviously the neck's in 2 sections and the head is separate, and the way I built the shell around the ball joints, they're actually pretty hidden. Yeah, there's still a pretty good range of motion there, and it's also pretty stable. I've yet to have this fall apart or anything. You can also see right here I use this lighter blue color, which is from the Water Dragon set. That'll be used more in other parts of the build. I would have preferred to stick to just the blue color of the head, but obviously because I was working with a limited parts palette, I had to incorporate some of the other blues in here. But you know what, I think it actually works well enough, especially in the areas where it's also combined with the red. But yeah, the head connects onto the neck here the same way it connected onto the original 4+ dragon, but you can see I intentionally made the base of this neck a little bit more bulky, so when you have the head down like this, it almost looks like it's one part, not that just the head's connected up here at the top. Very similar to the Legacy Fire Dragon, there's lots of different expressions you can get out of this guy just by posing the head, so you can have it swooping down like this, or up and at attention like this, and I think both of those are very cool. Now moving from the neck to the dragon's back, again I tried to keep this almost entirely blue. You can see there is a little bit of red coming up from the bottom, but very little red actually gets all the way to the top, just pretty much that piece right there and this piece right here. And then there's also a little seat for Nia, and I did try to incorporate the red there, because I felt like on the overall very blue back it would help make it stand out. I also have a bit of yellow here. Now that might seem a little bit out of place, and you can see we'll look at this more up close later on, but I also have some yellow on the tail here too. That may seem random and out of place, but you can see there's actually a little bit of that like bright yellowish orange color on the original head. So I did want to incorporate that into the build, but very sparsely, especially considering I didn't have that many of that color part available to me. So in the entire build, I think it's only on the seat and on the tail, but I also think it helps tie together the entire build very nicely. With the seat removed though, you can see there's how the dragon's back looks. You just have some studs right there to place the seat onto, and obviously that could be very easily modified to have more of these rounded pieces right here if I wanted to go for a more organic look, but I specifically wanted this to be something that Nia could ride, so I'm going to reattach that seat back on. I tried to make sure the sides of the dragon looked good too, because working with a limited parts palette, I knew I wouldn't be able to make every single angle pretty, but I at least wanted to make the sides look nice, and not just have them be bricks stacked on top of bricks. This rounded red bit I am super happy with. I think it creates a nice transition from the thinner body into the wider arms, and also helps incorporate the red from the bottom up to the top. And then you can see I have more side detailing right here, with some of these rounded blue pieces coming down into the red area, as well as this little flag piece hanging down, which when the leg is positioned correctly, can actually seem like it transitions into the leg, which I think that alone makes it worth it. Obviously things like the side, the wings, and the legs present an extra challenge, because with the limited parts available, I could only use parts that I had multiples of, because obviously I needed it to be present on both sides. But you can see I succeeded in that here. I have the same exact design going on, everything's just mirrored. I'm not super happy with this gray textured piece right here, because obviously that's not a huge part of the color scheme. There is a bit of gray specifically in like the Technic joints and ball joints, but this piece would definitely look better if it was in this blue color. Not sure if that exists in that color, but that would be a modification I would make if I was only using limited parts. Speaking of limited parts, I did break my rules a little bit. There's a total of 3 parts of this entire build that weren't from the 3 sets available to me. I wanted to avoid doing that at all costs, but if I had not brought those 3 parts in, I would have had to dramatically change the build, so I thought it was the best decision to just go with that. Just like in my Crystal King Temple video, I'm not going to tell you what those parts were, because I'm curious to see if anybody will notice in the comments, but the first person to discover all 3, I'll actually pin their comment. And just like in my Crystal King Temple video, they are all parts that are visible, none of them are hidden away. So while we're here, we'll take a look at the actual legs. These, of course, are on rigid Technic joints, so you can move them back, move them forward, move them out, move them in. There is a limited range as to how far you can move them in, but I don't know why you'd want to move them in any more than this. They're very inspired by the way the legs were done on the official Water Dragon, but I added my own twist to them, try to make them a bit longer than the legs in that build. You can see this also uses really the only incorporation of dark blue in the entire build. I tried to keep that away from the front side, but in the legs and the tail I was kind of running out of pieces. And because I specifically wanted the back legs to be mostly blue, and the front arms to be mostly red, I thought it was fine to incorporate the dark blue here, as long as it wasn't overlapping with the red areas too much. But yeah, you can see I just have a lot of wavy, watery pieces right here. I especially like this piece hanging down. On the inside of the leg, I've got some flippers. I'm not a huge fan of how that looks. I wanted to make the front of the leg look less flat, so that was a solution I came up with. But yeah, I think I definitely could have done that a bit better. But I think the trans blue parts I used are pretty cool, especially these teeth pieces at the bottom transition from the leg into the feet. Speaking of the feet, these were the second to last thing I built. The only thing I built after these was the tail, so I was very low on parts at this point. So you can see the colors of blue are kind of very inconsistent. I think the way I did the claws at the front was kind of unique, because I used the same like talon pieces from the original Water Dragon, but in a very different way. And then I used these blue flag pieces on the side to help create more of an angle, make it more of a unique shape, and also help cover up some of the non-blue pieces used, because as I mentioned, I didn't have many blue pieces left at this point. On the other leg, everything is exactly identical, just mirrored, and I maybe would have liked for the feet to be a little bit bigger, but they're definitely big enough that it's able to hold the dragon up, and obviously that's what's most important, so I don't mind. Now coming back up to the front with the arms, I really like how I did these shoulder pieces. Again, this is a little snot build, and I think it does a pretty good job helping to increase the bulk of the body, as well as give a nice rounded transition into the arms. The arms, just like the legs on rigid Technic joints, really happy with how I got everything rounded off at the front. As I mentioned, I wanted to keep the front arm as red, but I thought a little streak of blue would look nice. Additionally, originally I had it like this, with just like this gray piece showing, and I thought that was really ugly, so my solution was making this little build right here and plopping it on top like this, and I think this is what looks best, but it also kind of restricts the motion of the joint, so I ended up rotating it a bit to have it like this instead. Definitely doesn't look as good. This should probably be replaced with just a regular tile, but I still think it's good enough, and it looks better than just having that gray piece exposed. On the top, I just have this long sloped red piece. That, of course, comes from the X1 Ninja Charger, and I thought worked perfectly for the arms here. And then the wings are, of course, the Water Dragon wings, which I think ended up working pretty well. However, if I was the designer on this set, I definitely would have made my own wings instead of using these. Because, yeah, these are clearly designed for a 4-legged dragon, not a wyvern like I designed. So they definitely feel a little big and require these arms to be very big. The Technic system to make them up is exactly the same as the original Water Dragon, so you do have the slight wave to them that set had. But yeah, it definitely sticks out a little too far and looks a little bit unnatural, but I think it's good enough for a custom build. I definitely think if I was on the LEGO design team though and I was making this a full-size set, obviously a new wing piece would be better than just reusing this wing piece. And then the hands at the very end are on a regular ball joint, and this is taken pretty much directly from the original Water Dragon, though with the blue pieces swapped out for red, but I have the same black claws at the very end, and I actually think this works pretty well for this type of arm. It allows him to stand up on all fours, but also makes the claw not look too big when he's flying through the air. Oh, and then at the end of the wings, just to mix things up a bit from the official Water Dragon, I included these golden spiked pieces. Obviously the trident has a very aquatic feel, the size just like a smaller trident, and then the ski piece was also in the sets, and I thought it fit really well as a third. But I don't know, I think they're just a fun, unique way to top off the wings, and similar to the bright orange, gold's a color that I wanted to use a little bit in the dragon, but not make it overbearing, and I think this was the perfect accent. And once again, just like the legs, both arms are exactly identical here, all the way down to the joints joints and the hands and everything. Now coming to the back with the tail, I use the same basic like design system that the official water dragon uses. They all connect on this rigid Technic joint right here, but it's split up into 4 different sections, and I thought it'd be fun for each different section to represent a different color that the dragon uses. So I start with the dark blue at the very back. Obviously that was used on the legs and here on the tail. Then we have the lighter blue that's used on the head. I kept that very simple and thin. Then we have this more triangular design with the red right here. And then finally to top it off, we have the reincorporation of that bright orange, as well as gold at the very back with the trident topping it off to reincorporate that gold. And also, I don't know, I think it just makes for a very cool tip with the tail. Of course, the last 3 sections of this tail can swing back and forth, and then it can also be moved at the base, up, down, as well as be turned side to side a little. Now we do have one last thing to look at with this dragon, and I'm warning you, it doesn't look good, but luckily it is the least significant part of this build, and that is the chest. With the chest, the most important thing to me was that it looked good from the front, and I think the shaping at the very least does look good from the front. Obviously I would have preferred to have these pieces in red, but of course I did not have those pieces available to me in that color, and I don't even know if they all exist in that color, so I had to go with the gray instead, but I think at least the shaping turned out pretty good. But you are able to stand this guy up in the Mom I Threw Up pose, just like the Legacy Fire Dragon, and there you can see my full design for the chest. I used the original 4+ dragon body in the center right there to help reincorporate that red, while also making the body thicker because I didn't have that many thick red pieces to use. I put some transparent rounded pieces both on the chest and like on the abs of the dragon, because I think that looked a little bit better than open studs, but yeah, I know this does not look amazing. This was my lowest priority part of the build, so I saved the least amount of parts for this, but I definitely think I could do better than this. Now, if you were curious to see what the dragon looks like in a full flying pose, here you go. With the way his arms have to be splayed out, it kind of gives off like flying squirrel vibes, but I honestly kind of love that. It's unique, it's fun, it gives him his own identity that's like unique from other Ninjago dragons. I genuinely think it turned out pretty cool. Now in terms of posability, there's a pretty decent range when it comes to like actually standing him up. Obviously you saw the Mom I Threw Up pose, you saw just a regular standing pose in the intro, but here you can see you have him like all stanced up with his tail behind his back and looking down at like maybe a target or something. You can get him in more of a walking pose with one arm up and one leg up. But yeah, I think it turned out to actually be super cool and full of personality. I'm really proud of myself with this one. I was nervous about making a custom dragon because I never built a creature before, and I feel like they're probably more difficult than things like cars or temples or whatever. And while he's certainly not perfect for my first time building something like this, I'm genuinely very proud of myself. But I think that's about all I have to show for my giant custom dragon. Let me know what you guys thought of this in the comments below. Was it good? Was it bad? How would you improve it? Also let me know, do you have any ideas for future building challenges like this? Obviously I did my upgrading the Crystal King Temple video, and I have another video in the same realm coming sometime over the next few months, but if you have ideas for other fun like Ninjago themed building challenges, using specific sets to either upgrade one set or combine them into something greater, let me know in the comments because I'd be very curious to hear your ideas. Oh, and for those wondering what that teaser was on my community tab page, the picture of the Hydro Whipper with the short legs, that was a minifigure I made using the leftover parts from the minifigures from the sets in this video. The legs come from one of the Nindroids, and obviously the rest of the figure comes from the Water Dragon. I know nobody probably guessed this video because of that, but I just thought it'd be funny to share. But I think that's about all I have to say for this video, so thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed, please press like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I do LEGO and Ninjago videos just like this one almost every day, so if you subscribe, you'll be the first to see them. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.